Dimension 1, self-control and leadership. Before you can gain objective control over your team and move projects forward, you must gain control over yourself. You need to build habits and routines that will help you avoid distractions and stay focused on what matters and deliver the most value to your organization, whether you are diving into the weeds of problems or zooming out to a helicopter view. So, how can you do this? The following principles will make you a better leader. SAUS Principle 1. Personal productivity and organization are critical to your success. The fastest and most reliable way to be more productive is to manage your thoughts and wisdom in a way that frees your mind to focus on what matters. I combined David Allen's Getting Things Done, GTD, and Tiago Forte's Building a Second Brain, BASB, or BASB methods, detailed in their books of the same names. The GTD method helped me process tasks by dividing them into up to 3 mental inboxes and allocating a block of time for each. The BASB method helped me refine this process by using a more recent knowledge management tool, Notion.io. I recommend that you start with GTD and then move on to BASB. This way, you'll start quickly with a reliable and simple system that will make you a planning machine that won't forget a thing. The GTD is in sync with the brain's natural planning process, which includes defining purpose and objectives, defining the outcome and deliverables of a project, brainstorming and ideation, organizing and prioritizing, identifying the tasks and actions needed. This is backed by a workflow that will become second nature for processing all ideas, thoughts, tasks, promises, and more into the system. It will increase your brain's capacity, and you won't have to worry so much about what you might forget. Learning this method will give you the foundation to accelerate your focus and success. I included the link to the resources website for your reference under the resources heading in this book. Once you're comfortable with the GTD method, then you can start building your knowledge management system, KMS. This is where you store all the information you learn, making it easily retrievable for projects or tasks when needed, without relying on the depleting memory capacity of our brains. BASB is one method you could use. Again, there are links to more information on the resource website, which you can access through the link provided under the resources heading of this book. SAUS Principle 2. Be mindful of cognitive biases. As human beings, our brains always trick us into believing that we're always right and that we're the focal point of everything around us. This can be true in how we deal with each other at work. The higher you are in the ranks, the deeper and wider an influence your behavior has throughout the organization. So it's crucial to be mindful of and mitigate against all these biases, which can influence the accuracy of your decisions. As leaders, our pride tends to get in the way of progress by rationalizing our emotional decisions and ignoring any signs of biases. This behavior often blinds us to some facts that negate our assumptions and drives us to make wrong or unfair choices. Everyone faces this challenge, but successful people learn how to be mindful of it and embrace it constructively. For example, if you're interviewing a group of candidates, will the order in which they're scheduled influence your decision? The short answer is yes. 2 psychological phenomena, primacy bias and recency bias, suggest you will lean toward the first or last candidates interviewed. Other biases to be aware of include the following. First, confirmation bias. We prefer information that supports our existing beliefs. Otherwise, we dismiss it. Second bias, false consensus. We believe that more people agree with us than is actually the case. Third bias, status quo bias. We believe that the current situation is optimal and we shouldn't make any changes that could cause potential losses. Fourth bias, stereotyping bias. We tend to oversimplify the profiling of people's qualities and values, treating them as facts. Fifth bias, Parkinson's law of triviality. Our prioritization gets skewed when we see trivial issues as complex while ignoring the more pressing issues. Sixth bias, blind spot bias. We focus on other people's biases and ignore the fact that we have our own. In most cases, we believe we don't have biases. Finally, the seventh bias, sunk cost fallacy. when you decide to continue pursuing a project and invest more resources while ignoring all the facts and signs that you need to stop and mark the project as a failure. According to David Robson's book, The Intelligence Trap, intelligent individuals are more susceptible to biases. He also spoke about a term psychologists call motivated reasoning, where our logic becomes influenced by our emotions, which leads us to demolish any evidence that contradicts our beliefs. There are more stories and examples in the book, which I recommend you read to become better at spotting biases and avoiding their pitfalls. Being aware of the existence of these biases and detecting them is part of the mindful stage. However, you need to build routines that raise your immunity against them. See Figure 7 in the resources PDF on how to prevent misweighting. SAUS Principle 3: Fix things right the first time. This doesn't mean you become obsessed with perfection and avoid making mistakes. Perfectionism can be expensive and unrealistic. It can also lead to anxiety and stress. Seek to produce the optimal outcome with the resources available without cutting corners. It's always best to start with a prototype to test your hypotheses and then change one variable at a time. For example, if you want to speed up the refund process in your company, you could either pressure finance to accelerate the approval process, case by case, which might give you temporary results, or create a policy that empowers the frontliners to make the decision if the case meets certain guidelines. Initially, it could be a pilot phase under observation until you and the responsible stakeholders are happy with the outcome. SAUS Principle 4: Lead with integrity and respect. Be firm and fair. In a position of power, it is easy to let the rush of authority go to your head and end up disrespecting colleagues, partners, or customers. However, bossing people around will not build trust. You need to communicate in a constructive manner that is respectful while remaining firm in your recommendations and views. If someone else is responsible for the outcome, you need to make sure you are being fair to them by providing non-biased input. Another way of building trust is asking for and being open to constructive feedback. This will also help you become better at giving feedback, which again builds trust. Criticizing someone in public will make the person on the receiving end defensive. This will prevent them learning from the feedback you are giving. Conversely, praising publicly, as long as it is sincere, will encourage the person to do more of the same and ensure a constructive work environment which focuses on coaching and improving performance. SAUS Principle 5: Defer judgment on people's ideas or suggestions to ensure that creative input is always given the consideration it deserves. What worked or failed once may not again under different circumstances. We get tempted to quickly judge a situation based on our personal experiences rather than the conditions that caused the outcome of what worked and what did not. Confirmation bias is a major blind spot for many leaders, causing them to dismiss new ideas by assuming their failure based on limited personal experience. SAUS Principle 6: Move quickly, touch lightly. To ensure you focus on what is most important now and take small steps toward continuous improvement. This approach will help you avoid being dragged down by less important tasks, which could cause the whole project to fail. This is also a best practice that Tiago Forte, the creator of Building a Second Brain, teaches to help create a system that will make sure you're always mindful of the responsibilities that may not be a high priority right now, but will eventually become so. This way, you minimize the risk of forgetting a task, project, or solution that you need to prepare for some time in the future. This is the best way to navigate an environment that's fast-moving and filled with uncertainty. Learning from nature, bees and hummingbirds are the most effective at this. They fly by a group of flowers, slowing down to inspect each one before touching down. They are programmed to assess the conditions, scanning for nectar and possible predators.
Embrace a bias toward action.
Tom Kelly. If the stakes are high, especially if it could lead to you or a colleague getting fired, you'll have the natural tendency to overanalyze and worry about sharing an idea or a solution or being prematurely judged for it. However, it's always best to start small with a prototype and seek feedback. That way, you don't delay working on a solution, and you'll manage people's expectations in the process, involving them in your creative process. To learn more about the creative process, I recommend you read the book Creative Confidence, in which the founders of IDEO.com share their journey and case studies, building a team that has confidence in their creativity and transfers this culture to their customers.
Life is like a game of cards. The hand that is dealt you represents determinism. The way you play it is free will.
Attributed to Jawaharlal Nehru, India's first Prime Minister. SAUS Principle 7. Waiting for perfect conditions leads to wasted opportunities. The best conditions in which to submit a proposal or start a project are when minimum required resources are available to deliver the required outcomes. There will be challenges that keep popping up as you are implementing the projects, whether they're creating a new product feature, service, or an enhancement of a process, and you'll need to deal with all of these challenges with an open mind and heart as they come. If you're worried that you'll get stuck or end up cutting corners and failing, start with a small test or a prototype to assess the viability before you proceed further and invest more time and resources. This approach is known as the minimum viable philosophy. This philosophy can be applied to every type of project, including products, services, processes, organizational structure, or ecosystem creation. MVP, minimum viable product, is the most famous of them all in the startup world, and you can find many sources to learn about it, where I have added more resources on the resources page of the book. SAUS Principle 8. It's about how fast you recover from a mistake. Fear of being judged if we fail is pervasive in many cultures worldwide. However, successful founders and entrepreneurs know they are where they are because of the fast learning cycles they have had to go through by recovering from a mistake and learning from it. As Rocky Balboa says, it's not about how hard you hit, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. SAUS Principle 9. Invest in your critical analytical thinking skills. When the level of uncertainty is high and data is limited, and you have too many options to choose from, this skill will be critical to your success. The easiest approach to learn to be an effective critical thinker is to learn how deductive reasoning is used by lawyers to persuade the judge and jury to decide for or against a judgment. You can apply the same approach toward building and communicating arguments or a business case to the CEO, the CFO, partners, your board members, or customers. The most famous approach of effective persuasion is the Aristotelian rhetoric, created by the Greek philosopher Aristotle. According to Aristotle, there are three components of an effective argument or communication. A. Ethos, using hard data and evidence to support your decision or argument. B. Logos, adding credibility to your argument through case studies, historic examples of similar companies, your or colleagues' track record or experience. C. Pathos, tapping into the emotions of the audience or the stakeholders involved, such as customers or colleagues. Aristotle also highlights that there are two types of proofs you can use, which are inductive and deductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning, using examples to draw conclusions. If your argument states that raising your prices will improve customer retention, then present a case study of an industry leader who succeeded in applying the same strategy and the points of similarities that will make it work for you. Deductive reasoning. Using observations and probability, you reverse engineer a case from high-level claim down to the premise and evidence supporting the claim. Figure 8 is a simple illustrative example of deductive reasoning. SAUS Principle 10. Balance time spent in the weeds with time in the helicopter view.
Get in the mud.
Howard Schultz, former CEO of Starbucks. As a startup leader, it's crucial that you balance your time between diving into the details and high-level strategic thinking. Even though this sounds simple, it takes time for most leaders to find routines that help them do this. Also, book dedicated focus time in your calendar to review data and plans. Consider the following routines I've used for many years and work for me: annual planning, board and senior management progress reports, monthly progress review, and weekly planning. Annual planning, 2 to 4 blocks totaling up to 8 to 10 hours of focus, which includes reviewing the progress of last year, any research you have to do, strategy documents you need to write and update, hiring plans, financial projections, OKR, objectives, key results, updates, and presentations. Board and senior management progress reports. This includes project updates, incidents or risk items, and controls implemented to address such future risks. Monthly progress review. Review the progress of all projects against the annual plan and any adjustments to the plan in coordination with other colleagues and external partners. Weekly planning. Review weekly calendar, making deadlines, and blocking meetings and focus times. SAUS Principle 11. Small improvements lead to operational excellence. Positive, lasting innovations are achieved one step at a time through smaller projects. These can be achieved through agile project development, for example, using sprints that are 2 weeks in length. There are usually 1 or 2 possible solutions to the problem you are facing. Your success in achieving operational excellence depends a lot on the consistency of implementing continuous improvements toward those solutions. You should always look for ways to optimize and refine your processes, even when things are going well, because there's always something to improve, and eventually this will help you create the ingredients of a competitive advantage that differentiates you. For example, Apple came out with music players and smartphones late in the market. Sony was already a major name in MP3 players, and BlackBerry was already dominating the smartphone market. However, due to Apple's desire for excellence in service delivery, product, and customer experience, they have been able to keep improving on their products and services month after month and year after year, differentiating themselves from their competitors to become the brand we know today. Look for customer feedback if you're stuck and unsure what to focus on. Go through the complaints report and escalated customer support tickets. You can also interview a sample group of your customers. I'm sure you'll find ways that you can enhance a service delivered directly to your customers. If your function is not dealing directly with the product or service delivery, then you can look for enhancement opportunities that will improve the speed and quality of the output of the team members or directly contribute to the product or service delivery. For example, if you implement software for the sales staff to be able to claim business expenses such as client lunches, then you'll free the salespeople from the admin work to focus on their job and bring more customers and minimize mistakes in expense claims. Finally, it's important to remember that operational excellence is not a one-time thing, but an ongoing process that requires commitment and dedication to following processes that promote continuous improvement. SAUS Principle 12. Befriend your imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is common in highly intelligent and self-aware individuals. Motivation coaches and authors teach us to be aware of and fight against this force within us that brings us down through self-doubt. However, I believe it is better to embrace it as a force that will help you stress test and refine your proposals and arguments. Embrace the uncertainty imposter syndrome brings and allow yourself to be wrong. It will make you humble, which will serve as a counterbalance to your passion. While most of your peers will consider this approach mature and collected, some will look on it as a sign of weakness. Your calmness and collectedness will prove them wrong, so do not rise to the bait. SAUS Principle 13. Prepare yourself for the next stage. Many of us make the mistake of waiting for the right opportunity to come, assuming we'll have enough time to be ready. However, in reality, you need to be prepared way ahead of time to have the skills and understanding necessary to grab it. This includes building your team's capabilities for the future, not just what you need for today and the next 12 months. When a need or an opportunity comes, the more prepared you are, the higher your chances of success. To better assess whether candidates are the right fit for your team, it helps to have an operational blueprint that outlines the service delivery procedures and the role of each function in delivering the service or product to the customer. This will enable you to clearly see who fits where and what skills and capabilities you require for each role. This includes the roles and responsibilities, the specializations you require, and your decentralization trigger points. Ideally, as you grow the number of customers in a specific market, you'll achieve a critical mass that requires you to have a dedicated local team to serve the local market. In the best-case scenario, the team who have been working with you in the centralized pool of resources will be the future leaders, the seed you've been grooming to build and manage the local operation in that specific country or city. To better understand what each function entails in a startup or a scale-up, I recommend reading the book Startup CXO by Matt Blumberg. You can find more information on this book at the resources website. SAUS Principle 14. Share credit for successes and take responsibility for failures. It is essential to be fair, and for your stakeholders to see you as a leader who is nurturing and collected. It is important that you spend time coaching your direct reports to become leaders who can create leaders. You need to bring people into the spotlight when things go well and encourage them to continue the great work and inspire others. When things go wrong, take responsibility and avoid making people scapegoats for your failures, or even their failures. Giving in to your self-serving bias will spread a culture of fear which stifles innovation. Also, people will not want to work with you if you avoid taking responsibility or point fingers at others. Eventually, you will lose the support of your colleagues. If you fall into the common trap of wanting to protect your image, you will start rationalizing and justifying a punishment instead of focusing on lessons learned.